Hello everybody, and welcome to my dramatic reading of The Milkfic. I was unable to find the author in order to give proper credit, but it's not by me, and I would like to give author to the credit. Shit, that's not the way you say it. I would like to give credit to the author, and yeah, so here's The Milkfic. Brace yourself. Ryan was kneeling in the bathtub, a towel under his knees and another under his hands. His head turned as he craned his neck to watch Brendan working. The younger boy swirled the spoon around in the over-large bowl before tapping it against the rim and laying it on the counter. "You know it'll cool down a little once I get it in the bag. But is that good?" Brendan bent over next to the tub so Ryan could slowly dip 2 fingers into the bowl, nodding once. "It's fine." Brendan nodded again, reaching out to stroke Ryan's hair before standing up and returning to the sink, where all of the equipment was spread out. The hook was already hanging from the shower curtain, so Brendan could hang the bag as soon as it was full. "Go ahead and take the plug out, baby." His voice was soft, gentle, and start with your fingers. It was the gentlest of their darker interludes. No name-calling or hair-pulling or punishments for noises of pain. It hurt enough on its own, was degrading enough on its own. Brendan didn't need to add any of that. Brendan felt a small tremor run through his body as he heard the soft moan coming from the bathtub. Knew the other boy had just extracted the plug. He glanced up at the mirror, watching the boy set the glass plug on the edge of the tub next to the bottle of lubricant. Ryan picked up the bottle, desperate to fill himself as he opened it, dripping some lubricant onto his fingers and rubbing them. It was cold to the initial touch, but warmed up as his fingers moved. "You're so fucking hot like that, baby," Brendan purred from the sink, where the back was nearly half full. "Now, go ahead." Ryan flashed warm from the compliment, his wrist sliding down along his waist, hip bone, the curve of his ass, and then his fingers were poised, resting against his entrance before pressing in. He was already loose from the plug, so it was an easy intrusion. He didn't even have to bother with more lubricant before pressing a third finger in, moaning outright at the stretch. He started as he heard the click from Brendan hanging the bag. "Already?" "Don't sound so disappointed," the boy chided softly. "You can keep your fingers in for a second." He almost added a soft slut, but stopped himself. Brendan leaned down, reaching for the bottle of lubricant, letting himself hover over Ryan for a moment, his breath tickling the back of the boy's neck. "Just think about everything I'll do after," he whispered before straightening back up and slicking lube across the tip of the nozzle in his own fingers. "Okay." Ryan whined, but slowly pulled his fingers away. He wasn't empty for longer than a few seconds, Brendan's fingers immediately sliding over his opening before pressing in, then pulling out to press in the tip of the nozzle. "Breathe," he murmured, fingers running down the boy's spine. "I'm going to now, okay?" "Wait," Ryan choked up. "I'm going to now," Brendan repeated, voice a little harder this time. "You're fine." He kept his fingers running along the boy's spine as he loosened the clamp. Ryan bit his bottom lip, moaning as he felt the first rush of the warm milk sliding into his body. The beginning of the enema was always like Brendan's fingers were now, smooth and soft, almost. The cramps would come soon enough, but Brendan's fingers would still be the same. When they started, one of Ryan's hands flew up to his stomach, and Brendan stopped the flow without a word, letting the other boy massage his abdomen to ease the pain. "Just tell me." "Okay," Ryan whispered, his hand still on his stomach. Brendan loosened the clamp again, and Ryan felt the warmth continuing to enter his body. He continued to try to massage away the dull ache of the cramps as he felt his stomach slowly begin to expand from the amount of liquid he'd taken. "Stop!" he choked out again. He wasn't supposed to ask how much, but he was desperate to know. He felt like he had taken half already, but he knew it was probably more like a quarter of the bag. "Bren," he asked, voice close to cracking. Rennie." His voice was weak. "You're doing great, baby." The boy leaned down, letting soft kisses feather along Ryan's lower back. "So good." The tears were starting to build up. Ryan could feel them in his chest, waiting there, another ache in his body. He let his head fall forward, trying to slow his breathing, trying to focus on Brendan's fingers instead of the liquid inside him. "Okay," he whispered, voice cracking, as the first tears slid down his cheeks. The slow flow continued, and Brendan slowed the flow without a say-so after 5 minutes or so. "You're taking it so well, Rye," he cooed. "You've got half." He usually didn't tell Ryan how much he'd taken, but it had been a while since they'd done this, and he didn't want the boy to break before he managed to get both quarts in. "Half?" Ryan asked, voice timid, as if he wasn't sure if he should be relieved or disconcerted. "Mm-hmm." Brendan leaned forward, letting his lips kiss the back of Ryan's neck. Then, between the boy's shoulder blades, "Are you ready for more?" Then Ryan hesitated. Brendan squeezed his hip. "You can take it, baby. You've done this before." Ryan's head nodded a fraction of an inch, his breathing already labored. He gave a small squeak as the milk started slipping into his body again. Please, I can't." He shook his head, the tears coming out for real now. Brendan clamped the nozzle again. "I can't, Bren, please, I need to, please." The younger boy reached his head down to Ryan's stomach, the curve of a belly that wasn't there usually. "I know you can take this," he said, voice low, but not angry or disappointed. "I know you can, Rye." He let their fingertips brush. "But I won't make you," he added. "It's up to you." Ryan hated that. It would have been so much easier to go along with it if Brendan hadn't given him the choice. Now it was up to him to decide if he wanted to be selfish and disappoint his boyfriend and not get rewarded, or just go along with it and deal with the pain. "I'll try," he mumbled weakly, squeezing his eyes shut and biting his bottom lip between his teeth as he felt the flow again. Brendan slipped his hand down Ryan's stomach to wrap around his cock, gently stroking, trying to turn the whimpers that the older boy was now making into moans. "So good, baby," he kept whispering over and over. "You're taking it so good." "Hurts," Ryan choked out. "Break." Brendan locked the clamp again, letting Ryan rub at his stomach and try to catch his breath. "It's almost all in," he said gently, still stroking the other boy's erection. "Just a little bit more. I know you can take it, right?" "How much?" The question hung heavy in the air for a moment. Ryan wasn't supposed to ask, and he knew it, but he also knew Brendan never spanked him or punished him during an enema, so the worst possibility was simply that the other boy wouldn't tell him. "Probably 4 ounces," Brendan answered finally. "I'm gonna start it again, okay? You can take this all in one go." Ryan nodded, gritting his teeth, and counting silently in his head, hoping it wouldn't take longer than a minute to finish. He was only a few seconds over when the flow stopped and Brendan planted a kiss to the small of Ryan's back. "I'm gonna switch it out for the plug, okay? Keep it in." Ryan tightened his muscles, his toes curling as he did so. It hurt, tensing up along with the dull ache of his abdomen. Even with all of his tightening, a little bit of the milk-water mixture escaped, sliding down the inside of his thigh. Then the plug was in, and he could relax his muscles, but only somewhat. Brendan picked up a washcloth and wiped at the liquid that slid down Ryan's skin. It wouldn't be too long, Ryan knew, but it always seemed an eternity. 5 minutes or 10 minutes could feel like hours. Brendan's fingers slid up Ryan's back until they were twisted gently in his hair. "I can't wait to get you in the bed," he said thickly, voice low and gravelly. "Gonna shove my tongue in you so deep, baby." Ryan moaned outright, despite the dull pain in his muscles and stomach. It was a low moan, soft, but a moan nonetheless. And Brendan smiled at the sound. "Is that what you want?" the younger boy continued in the same tone. "You want my tongue in you? You want me to fucking your ass with my mouth? You're gonna taste so fucking good, baby. His fingers tightened slightly around in Ryan's hair, not enough to cause any pain. Just enough to make the boy gasp. Then moan again. Then I'll fuck you so hard, baby. So goddamn hard, so deep inside you. And then you'll take my cum in your pretty mouth. Ryan was whimpering, his hips moving ever so slightly, squirming. Please, he choked out. Please, he was begging for release. He knew it hadn't been long enough, but if Brendan kept it up, he knew he wouldn't be able to hold it in. I think you can hold it in for another couple minutes. But Brendan let go of Ryan's hair and sat back slightly, just letting his hands run slowly up the boy's sides. The older boy was quiet, just a few whimpers leaving his mouth, but still squirming. Brendan let his hands slip lower until he was firmly squeezing Ryan's ass in both hands. Almost, baby. Almost. It was another minute or so. Brendan's fingers skimming over the curve of Ryan's cheeks, and the older boy trying not to lose anything, trying to keep his muscles tensed just enough. Okay, Brendan stood up slowly, kissing Ryan on the back of the neck before stepping out of the tub. Slowly, he warned the boy. Don't lose anything, okay? He held his hands out, letting Ryan take them as he stood and gingerly climbed out of the tub. Brendan lifted up the lid of the toilet seat and helped Ryan to sit. This was always when Ryan started to cry again. He hated it. Hated how Brendan was there for the release. So humiliating. Worse than threats of letting Spencer watch or having Pete fuck him that one time while Brendan took Polaroids. Please, just... I can... Ryan said. I'm fine, I can stop. Brendan looked stern, frowning, shaking his head slightly. Stop. Ryan cried harder, bringing his hands up to push at Brendan when the boy moved closer, but too submissive to actually do it as the boy reached between his legs, fingers closing around the end of the plug. Please, Ryan whispered again. Please, Bren. The boy ignored him. Don't let it go until I tell you. He let Ryan's face fall into his shoulder. The boy was shaking from his choked sobs as Brendan slowly pulled the plug out. He set it on the counter next to the bowl he had mixed with the milk and water in. The arm came up around Ryan despite his tears. The boy was still clenching tighter than probably necessary. Okay, go ahead. Ryan shook his head. No. He cried harder when Brendan pressed his lips against the boy's temple. Please, Ryan. Now. The boy was still crying, clinging desperately to Brendan as the first drops of the mixture began to slip out, and then, like always, he realized he had no choice, and just let go, sobbing harder as he heard the liquid falling into the toilet. For Brendan's fart, he just held the boy, fingers running down his back, cooing soft sentiments to him. Good boy. Good job, Ryan. Finally, the noises slowed, and Brendan took a step back, letting Ryan wipe and flush the toilet. They both washed their hands in the sink, and Ryan blew his nose. I'm sorry, he whispered, refusing to look at Brendan. I didn't mean to. I know you won't hurt me. Brendan's cool fingers, still slightly wet from the water, slid under Ryan's chin, tilting the boy's face up to meet his eyes. Thank you, he returned, leaning in and kissing him. Soft at first, then harder, tongue slipping in. Bed. Now, he added, unable to contain his smile as he felt Ryan's lips curve upward against his. They walked out to the hotel bedroom area, and Brendan nodded silently, indicating Ryan should assume a position on the bed. Back or knees? Knees if they aren't sore. Ryan would take a lot more than sore knees for a rim job, as he'd clearly demonstrated. So Brendan nodded his approval as the boy got on all fours on the bed. Ryan kept his head facing forward, resisting the urge to look over his shoulder and watch Brendan. The younger boy loved that, how he didn't have to order the boy to do it. Ryan obeyed the unspoken command of his own accord. The bed sunk down as Brendan knelt behind Ryan, hands squeezing the boy's hips. Brendan leaned in, pressing a soft kiss to Ryan's entrance, smiling when he heard the moan. His mouth opened, tongue slipping out, licking it broad, even strokes, knowing it would do nothing but tease Ryan, torturing him. And truthfully, it was all Ryan could do to keep him from pressing his ass back on Brendan's face, while begging, "More, more, more." Brendan sat up and leaned forward, pressing 2 fingers to Ryan's lips. The boy sucked them into his mouth without a word, his tongue sliding around the digits, trying not to get over-eager, trying not to just beg Brendan to fuck him and start grinding his hips into the bed. When Brendan pulled his fingers from the boy's mouth, he leaned in for the kiss, smiling as he swallowed the bone from the intrusion of his fingers entering Ryan's hole, while they were still kissing. Then his mouth was gone, and Ryan's fingers twisted in the bedsheets, knowing what was coming, the muscles in his body tensing in anticipation. Brendan's fingers pulled slowly, evenly, opening Ryan up just enough to slip his tongue in, licking around the edge of Ryan's entrance. He licked over his own fingers as he slowly added another digit from each hand, pulling Ryan more open, exposing him more. His tongue slipped in deeper, and Ryan tried so hard not to push his ass back on Brendan's face. The younger boy's tongue started dipping in and out, slow at first, then quicker. Ryan was moaning, head thrown back, hips barely rocking. Brendan pulled his tongue out, and his fingers letting his lips press against the hole that was still open to the air. He began to suck, and Ryan let out a stream of expletives that Brendan had never heard before. He let up on the pressure, his tongue slipping back inside once more, teasing, pulling out to trace around the inside. "Fuck me," Ryan asked, voice high-pitched and uncertain. Brendan pulled off almost immediately, but didn't straighten up yet, pressing 2 fingers into Ryan abruptly, smirking in the boy's gasp, and slowly twisted them. "You want me to fuck you?" he asked, as if he hadn't heard a voice casual. "Please, Brenny," the older boy returned desperately, pressing back against the fingers, his head falling into the pillows as he collapsed on his arms, support following to his elbows. The fingers slipped out, and Brendan helped turn Ryan to his back, kissing him softly on the mouth, enjoying Ryan's tongue probing his mouth curiously, searching for the taste. He pulled away after a moment, and the older boy gave an airy sort of sigh. Then he was between Ryan's legs, bending them at the knee and separating them, settling between the thighs before he pushed in, no lubricant and no warning. Ryan made a low noise in the back of his throat at the burn. The stretch. He'd been waiting for this. Brendan hadn't fucked him for a week. Not properly. Toys and fingers in a fist. But not this. So simple. Just then. Nothing artificial. He wrapped his arms around his boyfriend's neck, leaning up to kiss his neck. They looked like any other couple just then, he mused. No one would have been able to look at the scene and guess that Ryan had just been given a 2-quart enema, or that the other day he'd been made to stand in the corner for an hour after Brendan had spanked him 50 times with a hairbrush. Brendan could tell Ryan was thinking, and he angled his hips slow, shoving in roughly. When Ryan's eyes popped open even wider, and he let out the tiny squeak, he knew he'd found the spot. All semblance of thought seemed to evaporate from Ryan's features as he just gave in, and started rocking against Brendan's hips, moaning. He reached for his boyfriend's hand, pressed the palm against his throat. "Please," he whispered. Brendan didn't need to be told twice, squeezing down on Ryan's neck, releasing after a moment to let him gasp for breath. Then his hand tightened again, and they repeated the pattern until his boyfriend started shaking his head, not wanting to use the safe word, but wanting Brendan to know he'd had enough. His hand fisted in Ryan's hair then, squeezing tight enough to hurt, but not hard enough to pull the hair out. "Touch yourself," Brendan breathed. Ryan obeyed immediately, one of his hands falling from Brendan's neck to slip between them, wrapping around the base of his cock, stroking in a slow rhythm that contrasted with the thrusts. He didn't want to come yet. He knew he didn't have a choice anyway. He'd come with Brendan when Brendan told him. That was the rule. "Faster," Brendan growled, shifting his weight so he could press in deeper. "I want you close, Rye. Tell me when you're close." The boy nodded, quickening the speed of wrist obediently, letting his eyes shut for a moment before he opened them back up. Brendan liked to watch him, so he could see Ryan melt through his eyes when they were in bed. He felt his hand tighten in his hair slightly and stopped moving. "Close," he choked out. Brendan smiled, letting Ryan wonder if he was going to have to hold it. Have to wait, have to worry if he could. But it was late, and they had been up at 6 hours. Had to be up in 6 hours. "When you feel me come, you can," he said, nipping Ryan's bottom lip between his teeth. The thrusts got impossibly harder. After that, but only for a moment, Brendan bit the inside of his cheek to keep from yelling as he felt himself explode. And then Ryan's wrist was flying as he moaned. Low and hoarish, Brendan could feel Ryan's cum hit his stomach as the older boy started swearing, his ass clenching down on Brendan's cock as his orgasms were leaving breathless and gasping for air. Ryan collapsed prematurely, still feeling his orgasm rocking through him, but unable to move, unable to breathe, unable to think. And then he felt Brendan pull out, leaving him empty and loose. He whimpered at the loss, turning and pressing his face into the boy's chest as he laid down beside Ryan in the bed. Brendan's arms came up, feeling Ryan's body trembling. "Baby, baby," he murmured. "Shh, it's all right." He kissed the boy's temple, fingertips gently massaging, feeling back into Ryan's muscles. "We're going to sleep now, okay? Early morning," Ryan whimpered, nodding, wondering if he'd be able to walk properly the next day. "Brittany." "Yeah, baby? I love you." "I love you too, Ryan." Brendan waited until he stopped shaking before he got up to turn out the lights and set the alarm on his phone. Then he crawled back into bed and held Ryan until he fell asleep, before he got up to clean the bathroom and put the equipment back in their suitcase. He was only going to be running on 2 hours of sleep the next day, but it had been worth it.